Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Creating Crimson's Fantasy. Before we get started in today's episode, let's go back in time and recap what happened in the last episode. In the last episode, we looked at the HUD concept and the creation process behind the player's characters. In today's episode, I'm going to show you one of the most important aspects of the game, the combat. Before I talk about the combat, please keep this in mind. What you're about to see is super early work in progress footage of the combat. Let me just say though, it's playing out really well so far. The goal for the combat is to make an experience that's fun, challenging, and satisfying. Things like being able to dodge roll, parry, and combine attacks to create combos are only the beginning. There's a few games and titles that'll inspire the aesthetics and gameplay for the combat. I'm specifically looking at Dark Souls, Sekiro, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and Sword Art Online. Dark Souls and Sekiro have great combat mechanics that make the game both satisfying and challenging. Things like being able to backstab enemies and stealth are a few things that'll be implemented within Crimson's Fantasy. Zelda Breath of the Wild has great aesthetics and a simple combat system that is fun to play with. The goal with Crimson's Fantasy is to make the combat easy to grasp, difficult to master. I love some of the effects that come out of Zelda as well, and that'll inspire the visual effects that I'll be working on for our game. Sword Art Online has great sounds, visuals, and animations for their attacks and sword skills. The abilities that you'll be able to use in Crimson's Fantasy are inspired by SAO's skills and visuals. The death effects that'll make their way into the game are also inspired by the anime. Before I begin, I want to quickly talk about the fighting styles that was mentioned in earlier episodes. When I initially thought of this concept, I thought it would be a cool way to combo attacks and make different playstyles. For now though, I believe I'll be backlogging this concept until further notice. The idea was really cool, but it makes things a little complicated for both myself and new players. Instead, I'll be adding in different things to change up playstyles. The main feature I plan on adding to replace the fighting styles are strong attacks. A strong attack can be used by holding the attack button rather than quickly tapping it. Doing this would power up your weapon and use its own strong skill. Strong skills are different for each weapon. Some strong skills would conduct large lunges beyond the weapon's typical range, or they would do giant crushing attacks. Strong attacks are different from abilities because they don't have cooldowns. However, they use more stamina. I think this will be a cool way to add in new things without having to use an additional button on your controller or keyboard. The first thing I created for combat was an equipping and holstering system. It's really simple. It just plays an animation and the character then is told that they're equipping something through a boolean. A boolean, for those who aren't code savvy, is a true or false variable, and I can set that variable whenever I like to change how the animations are playing. You might notice that the weapon doesn't properly attach to the character's hips. I'm currently working on this, so there's a few details that need to be fleshed out. But it shouldn't be too difficult to do. At the moment, I'm trying to get through a bunch of features so I can show it to you, and the details will be shown in episodes to come. After that, I started working on the basic attacks. Basic attacks are all controlled through something called an animation montage. Animation montages can have a ton of things including trails and sound effects, but the most important thing is that they support a feature called root motion. Here's some free education for you. Root motion is actually really common in games. How it works is your character contains a root bone. Animators can move this bone around to create root motion. Then programmers can use this data in the game to make your character physically move in directions without you pressing the movement keys. Games like Dark Souls use this a lot. Usually when you attack, you're forced to go forward and can't do anything while you're attacking. That's due to root motion. Back to Crimson's Fantasy though, the basic attacks can be comboed so you can quickly attack enemies. Some weapons like the daggers will have more attacks, while the longsword only has 3 basic attacks. At the moment, there's no stamina limits because I haven't added stamina yet. But once it's implemented, you won't be able to spam weapons like crazy since you'll have to keep an eye on your stamina. Attacking, sprinting, and dodging all use stamina, so you'll have to be careful. Running out of stamina makes you tired. It'll slow down your attacks and your movement, and your dodges won't be effective. Dodge rolling is in the game as well. Right now it's only playing an animation, but in the future you'll be given a few iframes to avoid attacks if done correctly. For those who don't know what iframes are invincibility frames. It means that for a few frames of the game, you are invincible to attacks. Dodging is omnidirectional, meaning you can dodge in 8 directions, perpendicularly and diagonally. The targeting system, or the lock-on system, is currently work in progress, but it feels great so far. You simply press a button looking in the general direction of an enemy and you can lock on to them. This makes things much easier for controller players, but also makes it easier for PC players to direct attacks. A few things that we'll go into in a future episode is things like blocking, strong attacks, parrying, and much more. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, feel free to like the video and subscribe, and also hit that bell so you can get notifications whenever I post a video. If you want to see the development of the game live, feel free to check out my stream at twitch.tv/firstcrimson. Link is down in the description. In the next episode, we'll be going through the implementation of the HUD, the damaging system, and much more. That's the end of this episode though. Have a fantastic start to your week.